I grew up in a small town in Malaysia called Kajang. I grew up in actually a coffee shop, that's what they call in Malaysia, where downstairs is a coffee shop and then we live upstairs on the second floor. And so I grew up with my parents, my brother, my aunts and uncles, and my grandfather. There were only 4 bedrooms, so my aunt and myself, we slept on the floor in the living room. And I remember when the first time I had the opportunity to sleep on a bed, I fell off the bed. A very traumatic event happened when I was growing up. I don't remember the exact age, 7 to 9, somewhere around there. It was a time where I was sexually molested by a neighbor. It didn't happen one time, it happened several times. That really impacted how I saw myself. I had a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. I know growing up, especially as a teenager, I had difficulty looking at myself in the mirror. I refused to take photographs, so right now there's not a lot of photographs of me growing up at all, just because of the image that I had on myself. I saw myself as someone who is broken and just dirty. I grew up watching my mom work really hard. She wakes up really early in the morning, from 4 o'clock in the morning, and then she'll clean the entire coffee shop just to make sure it's ready for guests to come in around 5:30 to 6 o'clock in the morning. So my dad works for the government roadworks department, and he goes to work at 7 in the morning and he stays under the sun pretty much the whole day until 4 o'clock in the afternoon when he comes home. My mom was the eldest girl in her family. She got to go to school for 3 years only, and then she was asked to stop going to school because the family needs her. She was the one who cleans, cooks, does the laundry for everyone in her family, and the one that runs the coffee shop with my grandparents, with my aunt. My aunt too was asked to stop school after a certain year she was in school as well. And it's really common in the Asian culture where they favorite the boys and lesser of the girls. And perhaps that's the reason why I advocate for women so much nowadays, is because what she went through and the lack of opportunities that were given to her, especially in her education. In the constitution, the country I grew up in, they do not favor the minorities. My ethnicity played a role in what kind of opportunities that I have. I know growing up as a kid, I didn't really know that. But as I continued to grow, especially when I was applying for a place in university, and I realized how much my ethnicity played a role in that. My friend who didn't do as well as I did in my results in high school actually got a place in the local university, and some of them even got scholarship to attend universities overseas. But for me, I've applied to the same ones and I was rejected.
A Malay will be favoured over a Chinese or Indian student when it comes to university places or scholarships, a situation some say is unfair and outdated.
So it was challenging to be able to send me to university. It has been a dream of mine to study in the US. So I went ahead and presented this opportunity to my parents and discussed, is there any way to make it happen for me? And I know my parents, despite knowing that they didn't have the money, they just said, yes, let's do it and we'll figure out on the way. I was offered multiple scholarships. I was working to pay for my own living expenses. I work in the dorm, I work in the bookstore, whatever it takes. I really did whatever it takes. And I managed to graduate. I had a magna cum laude. I decided to continue my education and apply for my MBA. I was really grateful that when I did my application, before I completed my undergraduate degree, I was offered a research assistant position. I completed my MBA being the top MIS student in the program. The first company that I worked with was the company that I wanted to work with. It was then called Anderson Consulting, now called Accenture. I remember before I returned to Malaysia, I told many people around me, I said that, okay, that's the company I'm going to work with. And I was really grateful when I went back, that was the company I got to work with. So after I got married, we had our first child. My husband and I started a business. Long story short, we did really badly and we lost everything that we made. And in fact, we were in a huge debt. And I still remember waking up every morning feeling anxious Yet, one thing I realized is we never gave up. We kept looking for opportunities. We started another business, kept going. That business fell. We started a different business, we kept going. And finally, one of them, we did really well and we started coming back. My company held several events, and 2 of the events were recorded in the Malaysia Book of Records. I was featured on Bloomberg Malaysia. When I had my eldest son, I wanted to spend more time with him, and I thought it would be great to just, venture into the teaching industry. So when I applied for a scholarship to do my PhD, it's a private organization who is affiliated with a local university, I got a full scholarship. It has always been a dream of mine to move to Canada, ever since I was 13 years old. And I was glad that, in 2008 we made it to Canada. So coming to a new country, my husband and I were obviously a little bit concerned what we'll be doing. And I remember telling him, worst case scenario, I'm willing to work at McDonald's in order to support my family. I was never going to give up. I was determined to make it work here in Canada. So in Canada, one of the company I ran, I had 20 employees. And I remember at that time, there were slight moments of doubt where, can I run a company with 20 employees? Some of them are different background again, different age group, different experience. And through that, I got to see, how I was capable of running that company. In 2013, I was invited to speak at an event. We were celebrating Oprah visiting Ottawa for the first time, and it's called Celebrating Oprah. So it's been a dream of mine to meet Oprah one day. And I remember when I was creating my dream board, my husband photoshopped my photo and Oprah's photo, and I had it up on my dream board. And I'm so happy in 2013 was the year I got to meet her in person. I met her at a VIP event where there was only 50 people, and I had an opportunity to just have a one-on-one moment with her and an actual photograph with Oprah. I met Oprah again in 2019 on a cruise with Oprah and Gail. In 2014, I organized an online summit for women entrepreneurs around the world. I was really fortunate. We had really amazing people who came on the platform. I got to speak alongside Dr. Shirin Ebadi, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. I was invited to speak in the United Kingdom alongside the Queen of Ghana. I also had the opportunity to speak at the California Women's Conference, where individuals like Arianna Huffington and Jack Canfield were speaking. In 2015, I was a contributing author to an international best-selling book. In 2016, I finally published my own book, and it's called Power Love, Power Life. It's been a dream of mine since I was a teenager. In 2016, I created a personal transformational program called Seeds Leadership. The programs are now running in Toronto, Vancouver, Miami, Charlotte, and Kuala Lumpur. In 2017, I created another program called the Facilitated Development Program, and we ran 2 of the programs in Bali, and last year we did it in Croatia. In 2018, I was ordained as a minister of walking prayer. My intention of sharing with you my story is because it doesn't matter how you grew up, where you grew up, what kind of income level you grew up with, your gender, your ethnicity, your educational background, or whatever happened to you that might have be very traumatizing. I'm not saying that it didn't happen to you. Yes, it did. Yet you don't have to have all these things determine who you are. You get to decide. You get to choose how to move forward. You get to decide what your life is going to be like. Your past doesn't define your future. You can create the life the way you want it. If I can do it, so can you.